everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. Today we are in the studio with my brother Dylan.
Hello.
So we're super excited to interview him. We had some questions on Instagram going over that, and we'll just kind of jump right into the interview.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, why don't we just start? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, sorry about my voice, a little raspy from the Vikings winning yesterday, so go Vikings.
Finally.
But, yeah, as far as me, 33 years old. I actually live in Charlotte, North Carolina now with my wife. We've been there for about 9 years, but obviously Erika's brother growing up, and known her since she was 2 or 3 months old. So, yeah, other than that, I mean, that's basically just about me. Yeah, but obviously excited to answer questions and be on the podcast.
Yeah, he's been a huge support the entire time with our podcast, listening to our episodes and everything. So we're excited to have him on here and kind of dive deeper into kind of our relationship that we haven't really talked about ever, honestly.
Yeah.
So I know this, but for our listeners and for Risa, how old were you when I was adopted?
Yep. So I turned 6 in Colombia while we were there. So I guess I was 5 when we left, but I actually turned 6 in Colombia. I had a birthday party there at the residency place that we stayed. So that was super
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I got it. They played a pinata game, and they had this 7-foot tall guy hold the pinata, and I actually hit him in the leg with it. So I have a lot of memories from that day, actually. So definitely, I have quite a bit of memories from when we were in Colombia, and it was definitely a great experience even for being that young. I remember a lot of stuff of how it was different than America at that point in time.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, before that actually took place, like, your parents having a conversation, like, about, like, them making this decision, or talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the first thing I remember is that my mom had mentioned to me, hey, we might be looking at getting, and I don't know if at the time it was a brother or a sister, or if it was just a sister, what it was, but we're looking at adopting a kid. You're going to have another sibling. And didn't really I was young. I don't know when I first started looking. I'm sure they said in the first podcast, but I'd say I was probably 4 or 5. So it's not like I was like, probably didn't even know what adopted even meant, I guess.
Sure.
So it just kind of was like, okay, sounds good. Like, sounds good. And then all of a sudden, later on, I don't know how much later on, but when I actually found out, hey, here's the person that's going to be your sister. There's a picture that came in the mail. My mom showed it. It was a picture of Erika as a baby.
Aww.
Yep, bald-headed and... And
nice.
And they said that, bald, and they said, this is going to be your sister. And I was like, oh, wow. And, from then, I was excited about it. I think that because I was so young at the time, I didn't, it'd be a lot different if I'd have been 10 or 11 or 12 and know what adoption is, but I didn't know. So I was like, okay, cool. It's awesome. I'm
you
excited.
get a sneak peek that way. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And I remember being really excited. And then, so that was kind of how I found out. But from then on, was definitely looking forward to it. The bedroom that I was in was your room growing up. So I basically had to move from that room to the other room. I got an upgraded different room. We're getting a new sibling. So it was an exciting time and for sure.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thinking back on that now, do you think there's anything that you can say would be important for adoptive parents to share with their biological child, or I guess maybe any older child, but generally being a bio child?
That's a good question. I feel like it depends on the age for sure. Like they might have said stuff that I don't even remember just because I was so young, but I think that's important to explain how adoption works if you can, or if they're at the age that would make sense to do that, I guess. But I would say, it's just explaining the situation and that, this is, you can say it in a simple terms to a child of this is the reason why is that, we're unable to have another biological child. Something we want to do is grow our family and give you the opportunity to have a sibling. So it's a really awesome opportunity. This person needs a home, blah, 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 something like that. But I think that's important to at least just say as much as it makes sense for their age group, I guess, if that makes sense.
For sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you talked about going back to Colombia a little bit, about you being 6. What else do you remember from the trip?
Yep. So we, first off, lots of plane rides. I think I don't remember if I threw up on the way there or the way back, but I did throw up at one of the plane rides, I do know.
Too much chocolate?
Yeah, it was something like that.
What?
Too much chocolate. I think it was the way back I threw up. But anyways, when we got there the first night, I remember being very, very tired. We were all really tired because I don't know how many, you guys probably know how far the distance is more than me, but had to go from Minnesota to Chicago, Chicago to Miami, Miami to Colombia.
Gosh.
And
oh wow, a lot of flights.
Yep, lots of connecting flights. But I remember being really tired. And the first night we were there, we had cold hot dogs or something. I don't know if that's you guys might know better than me if that's a Colombian thing or
I've
not.
never heard of that.
So,
God, I hope not.
I think it might have just been the residency place we were staying at, but they had hot dogs that were kind of cold, and I was like, oh, maybe that's how they do it there. And but I was a very picky eater then, so the only thing I would order for the most part was pan y agua. I got taught to say bread and water. That was my, and then sometimes I get milk. I mean, I'm sure I ate some other stuff, but I remember after the hot dogs, I kind of just stuck to basic
Bread
stuff.
and water.
Those hot dogs, man.
Yeah, we went to Pizza Hut in Colombia as well, and it tasted a lot different than it tasted.
I kind of
in
love
America.
that though, about going to foreign countries, like
It
trying the
tasted
fast food there.
Strange, I would say,
Fascinating.
from when I was a kid. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're usually pretty different, I think.
And we went to Lion King in Spanish. I was big into Lion King, so I saw El Rey León. So that's what
That's
it is
so
in
awesome.
Spanish. So we saw that in Spanish, and obviously I knew kind of what they were saying just because I'd seen it in English. We went to this interesting zoo, they called it, and it was live. You know the story, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, jaguar or some kind of a wild cat
What?
had a live meal. So they were interacting with chickens, and so
Oh
that
my
was part of
God! What?
that was part of the zoo. So I remember that. I remember, and I'm just kind of spitballing what I remember, but there was a person, we had a taxi, or I don't know, a taxi driver, but a person that drove us around throughout Colombia just because the way that the traffic is there was crazy. At the time people drive up on sidewalks, run the red lights, whatever it may be, but someone
Fun.
banged on our window, and
Oh
I
yeah.
remember that was kind of scary for everybody. But I met a person there that lived in Holland or something, and we kind of hung out together because his parents were also
Oh, okay.
adopting a kid. Their dad was a 7-foot tall guy that was holding on to the piñata
That you hit.
that I hit. So and
What a memory.
I also lost 2 teeth on my birthday
Oh my gosh.
because I was roughhousing with that 7-foot tall guy from the Netherlands.
Oh my God!
So let's see what else if I can remember.
Did you hang out with a lot of the families then who were there, or were there a
everyone
lot
kind
of
of hung out
families?
together. That was kind of cool. So it was like
Yeah.
it was like a hotel sort of, but like
Was it like a hostel? Did it have like shared
we had
like
a big
kitchen
room.
spaces? Or
I don't know. They had food. Like you got served food. It was like you go
Oh.
downstairs and there's breakfast. You can
Oh, wow.
shoot. Yeah.
Hmm.
So people would, from what I remember, I set the table. Someone comes around. And I say pan y agua, get bread and water, and so it was really interesting in that regard. But I remember there's a guy named like Togo or Menza was the. Anyways, I played with a couple kids that didn't even speak the same language as me, which was pretty
Yeah.
interesting. So
Wow.
so it shows when you're a kid, you don't need to even know the same language. You can just interact and play. So I know there's at least 2 or 3 people around my age that I played with. And then I know my parents had groups of friends that they kind of met there and still keep in touch with to this day. So yeah, it's definitely a unique experience and super cool. It's the only country I've been to outside of Canada and the U.S. So
Oh, wow.
people say, what countries have you been to? I say Colombia because my sister's adopted from there, and United States and Canada. So yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so remind me, you guys had, was it 1 or 2 visits that your parents?
One.
Okay, so
Just
you were
the
there
one.
the whole time?
So good question. My dad and I were there for a couple of weeks. Then we had to go back early.
Okay, that's right.
And my mom had to stay back. So we left a couple weeks before you guys came back. And then, when you guys came back.
Thank goodness I wasn't with you when you threw up.
Yeah.
It was pretty already. Early
thing
in life,
that I
you probably
think-
had an issue.
Yeah, for sure. You wouldn't even known. But
How dare you.
another thing, too, that I know my parents mentioned when they were on the podcast, but I think is still funny,
Yeah.
too, is that when we were there that day to adopt Erika, I kept saying, when are we going to see my sister?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, because we're just signing paperwork. And I'm just like, oh, boy. You know, you're a 65-year-old kid. You're like, oh, I'm so bored. Like, when are we going to see Erika? When are we going to see Erika? So super excited when we got to see her. And then also we got to go to see the other people that were not going home that day. And we got to meet them. They, some were up to, I'm sure the ages go up to maybe like 5 or something that were kids from babies to 5-year-olds. And I remember they were eating those crackers that have I remember weird stuff sometimes. The cheese crackers with the peanut butter inside them. I don't personally like them that much, but that's what they were feeding as a snack that day when we were there. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Oh, so you saw the other kids who
The other
were
people
waiting
who
to
were
be
not being adopted that day.
Got
who lived
it.
there. Yep.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't know if that was the same time or a different time.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times we went, but I remember that.
So the process of meeting me, it was just took forever, and
Took
then
forever.
you finally met me.
Finally.
Walk us through that moment.
Now that's
Paint a
what
picture.
I feel like I remember more the moment of saying, when are we going to meet you, more than I remember
You
Exactly.
remember the
Yeah.
anticipation.
Yep. But me, I mean, I remember I was like, whoa, here she is.
Yeah.
And then I guess you must have went home that same day. I don't remember, right? I'm assuming so. Mom and dad probably, because we wouldn't meet you and be like, see you later.
Because you met me at a different place than you were staying at.
Yeah.
Because it's
Udemy.
at the
Yeah.
home, I
Udemy,
believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't remember like, oh my gosh, here's my sister. I mean, I'm sure I was like, whoa, cool, she's here. And then, you're a kid, you probably
You're like
lose
5,
attention
6,
span
yeah.
for a second.
You're like, all right,
when do we
cool.
see Lion King in Spanish?
Yeah.
Welcome to the fam.
But it was like crazy because now, oh my gosh, I have a sister. But I remember that I was definitely excited and always looked forward to it. When they told me that I guess because I was an only child until I was 5 or whatever. But I wouldn't say that I wasn't like I always want to be an only child, but I necessarily wasn't always like I really want to have a sibling either. I just kind of like go with the flow type, I guess. So when they told me I was having a sister, I was like, cool, awesome, so
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Well, fast forwarding a little bit.
Yeah.
How was growing up with someone who was adopted? Did you
Yeah.
feel like there was much difference in how you were raised in that aspect?
Good question. As far as how we were raised, I would say I don't know if there's a difference in how we were raised per se. I would say that we both, how would you say it? We have different styles when it comes to learning, or maybe if I'm told blah, 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 I'm like, okay, I do it. Where you were maybe more of a challenger to what mom and dad said, I would say, versus me, I'm just like, okay, whatever. Easier just to do what they say, where
Sure.
you're more of a challenger, maybe argue more,
I think some
things
people
like that.
call rebel.
Yeah, more of a
you know?
rebel, exactly. More of a
I
rebel.
think that's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So she was more of a rebel, I would say, growing up. But I would say as far as how we were, I mean, they definitely treated us the same and always showed us, I think, both a lot of love. And always from the get-go, I like that they always told, we all knew Erika was adopted. Erika knew she was adopted. I always think that's
Very
crazy when I see, oh, this person found out when they were 12 that they weren't. It's like, why would you not tell them stupid?
Yeah.
Because they're going to find out with the 23andMe anyways, or whatever, right? Or whatever the case may be. They're going to find out somehow.
Yeah.
So I think that was great that they did that and always taught us that we're still, it doesn't matter if you're not blood related. You're she always from day one that we picked her up, she was my sister, she was my adopted sister, And obviously that's something I'm sure you guys will ask, how do other people, what is it like to have a sister that's adopted? Because other people don't necessarily understand that, at least back in those days,
Yeah.
But I would say we were raised pretty much the same. What would you say?
I agree. And I think from previous episodes, we talked about kind of the difference too of being boy versus a girl.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different things that you kind of get raised
But that
upon
doesn't really
differently.
necessarily dictate parenting style.
No, and
it's
no.
more, I think that's
But
the very
different
blatant
things.
difference, but that's literally
but that's
very
kind of
surface.
The style's not different, it's just a different gender, so you might
just
talk
different
about
things.
different
approach.
things.
Yeah,
things.
exactly. That's kind of the only thing I don't think parenting style
I
changes
don't
at
think
all.
so.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Did you ever get jealous that she was adopted and that you weren't, just based on that difference or anything like that?
No, I don't think I necessarily was jealous or even thought of it like that, but I would say that I think that sometimes it seemed like, how would I say it? Not that I wouldn't say you got more attention, because I feel like we both got the same amount of attention, but I would say that me being older and you being smart in your ways would be.
What did you do?
Listen, she would be like,
Tell
Dylan, and
us,
I'm
yes,
great.
please.
You can think about it. I'm actually just a really good brother in the fact
You
that
are.
she
You
would
did
say,
a lot for
Can
me.
you, Dylan, get me a glass of water?
Oh
And I'm
my
like,
gosh.
Dad would make me get a water at that age. I suppose I was like, Dylan, make me a Hot Pocket too, or whatever, stuff like that, whatever it might be after
Has it
school.
changed a bit?
After school, and I'm thinking to myself, I was doing these same things when I was this age, so you can make your own. But me being the nice person I am, a lot of times I'd make it or do whatever it was.
You would. It's so
So
funny you bring up the glass of water, because right when you're talking about different parenting styles and that would be more challenging, that's the first thing that came to my head.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, could someone get that for me
Yeah.
instead?
So I would say just
Yeah.
because she knew that we'd get it for her, that she pushed the boundaries on it.
Oh
But,
my gosh. That's so
yeah,
funny.
for sure.
Oh, I love that. As far as other conversations with other people, either back then and or now, what kind of questions did you get about your family dynamic?
Yeah, good question. I mean, a lot of times, so that's, I tell people I didn't always say my sister, I won't necessarily say, if I say I have a sister, I'm not going to say, and she's adopted, you know what I mean?
Right,
I just
right.
see my sister. But maybe I'll bring up the fact that, something along the lines, I might say, my sister's adopted from Colombia. Oh, so she's not your real sister. Or, so we're her real parents. Or are you adopted too? That happens sometimes.
Oh,
things
interesting.
Like
I
that.
didn't think you'd get those
Oh, are you
questions
adopted
too.
too? And they say, no, I'm not, but she is. And then it's like, oh, well, she's not blood related. I don't know. You hear that, or oh, she's adopted, or whatever it might be. So I'd say people, and then you'd say, oh, why is she? I mean, at that point in time, I don't know why. If I knew exactly why they adopted, if I knew that they had trouble having kids or whatever the case may be, I think I must have. But anyways, I was defensive of like, she is my sister. I never said like, oh, she's not my real sister. But also I think, yeah, I always like stood up for like, she is my sister. Like, that is it doesn't matter if they're blood related or not. She's my sister. And like, yeah, I don't know.
And I know sometimes when you meet people from Colombia or something like
I
that.
tell them that all the time.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I've met people from Colombia, wherever the case may, different areas, work or different, I may have a customer at a job I've been at, like, oh my gosh, my sister's from there. And even for them, sometimes it's hard to understand. So does she speak Spanish? And you're like, no, she was 2 months old, blah, blah, blah. So you have to explain that and kind of explain the dynamics behind that. But I think more of it isn't necessarily what people would say directly to me, but you hear like, and you guys mentioned on your thing before, like, oh, blah, 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 on TV, oh, you must be or like, oh, I'm the adopted child, because, they make it a negative thing, which isn't so much now, I'd say, compared to before, but it's still something that you hear a lot that I always am like, well, that's not very nice to say because people are adopted.
Right.
I know someone adopted.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah. So I'd say that people always have questions. Oh, well, that's, not your real sister, things like that. But I'd say like, she's pretty darn real to me.
Yeah. Aw, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Did you have any like assignments or anything like family tree wise that made it difficult, or?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we had some family tree stuff in
I think that's always something like
school or
Yeah.
something like that.
I
But
don't
it
remember
never
doing
was
that
that-
ever.
I guess
I
I don't
remember
think
a
it
large
was
sheet of
weird
paper.
because all I really would have to do is technically I might not even know if you're adopted because I just put you on our family tree.
Yeah.
And then there you go. Yep. But yeah, people also I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I would say that with people didn't necessarily know that we weren't brother and sister biologically either, because even though you're Colombian, you're not like way different skin tone than me. I mean, you're definitely tanner than everybody else in our family for sure in the summer and stuff like that. But I'd say like right now, if you look at us, we don't look like,
pretty
whoa,
pale.
there's no way
We have
we both
that in
have
common.
darker.
We get that too.
Yeah, we both have darker hair. Like it could work, it could work where it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Is there any advice that you would give to other siblings of adoptees?
I think, be as supportive as you can to them. I think that I've learned a lot about, I guess, how you felt being adopted, way more from the podcast than me.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons I guess I like listening to it the most, is that a lot of stuff I just kind of figured like, because I'm not adopted, so I don't have the feelings. I'm like, okay, in my thoughts is that you're just like, okay, mom and dad are my dad now.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
that's it. And now that's it. That's my parents.
Yeah.
Like, cool. That,
Right.
But it's not like that at all. And it's a lot different. So I think that was the biggest eye opener. And that wasn't the exact question you guys asked, but I think just for me is the biggest eye opener. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that you were dealing with at those times that I'm thinking like, why are you,
No big deal. Yeah.
Or maybe you got in an argument with mom and dad or something. I'm like, why are you getting in arguments? It's easy just to do whatever. But it's because you were feeling things that I wasn't feeling, that I didn't even know that you were feeling. So I think that's been the biggest part. What was the actual question though?
If there was any advice that you would give.
So I think just to be supportive, and maybe like, for me, I could have asked more questions about that. I never really asked anything about, oh, how does it feel to be adopted, or ask her questions about how that felt, just because growing up as a kid, maybe you don't think of that. But if someone were to hear it now, me now knowing what you did feel, that could have been some stuff that could have been helpful to be supportive in that way too.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's weird because, we obviously knew I was adopted, but we didn't bring it up or talk about it all the time.
No,
you
like,
just
Erika, you're adopted.
You kind of
there,
you just kind of forget about it. I mean, that's family. It's just
you're in my
natural.
family. You've always been. As soon as we got you, were my sister.
Yeah.
100%. There was never a time that, I was, I didn't think that you should be part of the family or anything like that.
And I've always felt that support from you.
Yeah.
You've always been a really good brother.
Thanks.
Yeah.
One question to kind of add into that, if you were to say, like, looking back in the past, if there were to be like a timeline that you kind of wish that you would have maybe put more into that as far as asking those questions.
What age group or something?
Like what age group, so that like for in the future with other resources that would be able to express that to a child.
Exactly, because as a 9-year-old or something, you're not going to know to do that. I don't think. I'd be like, you'd be 3 anyways. I want to be like, how do you feel? but I'd say maybe, when would you say that you started really feeling the effects of, I mean, maybe you always felt it,
I
but what
would
would you say is that you would
say-
be able to talk, you would be able to have a brother that could say like,
Yeah.
hey, blah, blah, blah.
It's
when you were a
weird
teenager,
because
I feel like maybe when you were a
I
teenager,
would say-
like 12 or 13 or something.
Yeah, I would say starting to be a teenager, but I don't know if I would talk about it at that time.
Right.
I feel like you'd almost have to start it earlier to make it more of a
That's
natural
true.
conversation.
Yeah.
Like 10 and force
Before like feeling like it's
Great
challenging as a
point.
teenager and
Yeah.
like that
Mhm.
emotional.
Because that's when you're really feeling it the most. And,
And
those
you're
vulnerable
not
stages.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
so I'd say
11
maybe
or
like,
12 or
yeah, so
something.
around that age, like not
Mhm.
quite a
Or when
teenager
you're
yet.
11 or 12 or something.
And then, and yeah, I think that would be a great time. And then I could be like, hey, how does that feel? Or
Mhm.
is there something you feel maybe that is different because I'm not adopted than what you feel? Or is there, how can I help you? But I mean, I don't know if you'd be the person helping the sibling that's older would know to do that or not. But I think if it's
Yeah.
something that could be taught, and like if you guys had a thing for like,
regular talk.
for
Making
teaching
that
how
normal.
that could work
Yeah.
for families that are biological, that have an adoptive sibling that's younger, when it's a great age to introduce that. I would say, yeah, probably 10 or 11 or something. And then just, it doesn't have to be like, oh, we're going to talk once a week about you being adopted. But, just
Yeah.
knowing that, hey, if anything, you can always let me know and blah, blah, blah.
For sure.
So do you think then when you were growing up, it was the fact that you hadn't thought to ask those questions, or was it more that you were uncomfortable to ask those questions?
Probably both, I would say.
Okay.
But I didn't
Mhm.
I really didn't ever
Yeah.
think to like ask, how does it feel to be adopted or something
Mhm.
like that. But I think that in the back of my mind, obviously, I must have known that you get uncomfortable questions about saying you're adopted, because
Yeah.
I know that it was uncomfortable to get questions about,
Okay.
that's not your real sister.
Which is so
blah, blah,
interesting.
blah,
I
blah.
never thought like you'd get all of those
Yeah.
deep, detailed
Comments.
questions
Oh, that's
too.
not your sister.
Yeah.
Blah, blah. That's not your real sister. So blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
That is really interesting.
Or like I said, or you hear somebody else who maybe doesn't know you have an adopted sibling. They're like, making jokes about adoption.
Yeah.
And it's like, well.
Oh yeah,
And that's
exactly.
where I feel like I could have done a better job. I mean, I feel like I told people that my sister's adopted, but I didn't necessarily, if someone's made a joke about someone being adopted, would I immediately say, hey, my sister's adopted? I don't know. Sometimes maybe just let it slide in the back of your mind. You're like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
get
that could be
that.
uncomfortable
Yeah.
for the sibling.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
'Cause
feel
you're
like
oh,
I
my.
would and still do like make a comment.
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, this is awkward.
Yeah.
I'm adopted.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's usually kind
Yeah.
of.
And I think that took a while for me too to like
I would
stand
have that
up.
happen when I was younger,
Yeah.
and I'd be like,
And I feel like things are
Yeah.
different now with stuff like you
For
guys and
sure.
all the resources that, and the other people are in the same situation that are talking about it.
right.
It's different than in the 1990s when,
Yeah,
everything was different than it is now.
Yeah.
that's for
Not
sure.
nearly as much
Yeah.
awareness.
Okay, so your advice is kind of the same as what you'd like to change, essentially.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I
That
think
makes
so.
sense. So I guess again I know some of these, and some of them I don't know full details. But how involved were you when?
You were looking for your birth mom?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not supposed to. I may have heard the question before, but just that one. Now, how involved was I? And I would say I wasn't very involved, but that
So you're how old at that time?
we just moved to North Carolina, didn't we?
Yeah.
Colby and I? So we just moved to North Carolina.
So farther away,
So-
and we're
Oh.
6 years apart. So
Right.
you're
Yeah,
6 years
that's-
older.
So that's
So
the thing.
24
I would have
and
been
18?
24 and should have been
Oh,
18.
okay.
Yep.
You guys
So-
are very different
and
points
that-
in your life.
And that's
Right.
one reason too, where maybe why I didn't ask the question, because we never went to the same, except in elementary school. I think we were in the same elementary school for like a year.
Yeah.
But besides
Oh,
that,
gotcha.
we never went to the same school. We're always pretty far apart in age.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
6 years.
yeah, so pretty far apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, so mom told me Erika is interested in her birth mom, and I don't know if she told me that they were gonna look and then they found.
Interesting. I
It
didn't
was
know mom
super
told
quick.
you.
Yeah, I don't know if she
Find out
said.
somehow.
I don't know if she said you were gonna look, or if she said she started looking in it wasn't like the next day that they found her.
It was really quick.
So they
Like,
said that,
so
and
quick.
I
Yeah.
guess that in my mind, again, this is where you just don't think of it because you're not adopted. And I didn't know
Sure.
that you would be feeling different, but
Mhm.
I was just kind of like growing up, and I thought to myself, like, I didn't think that necessarily you would ever meet your birth mom or even want to meet your birth mom, just
Mm.
because I'm thinking, well, you have us for your family
Yeah.
now. That's your family. Kind of just what I thought. So when they told me, I guess I didn't think made sense. Why would you not want to meet your birth mom?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, yeah, cool. And then I
Interesting.
know for a while we had talked about going on that trip too, but because we got
Mhm.
married a month or two after you went back, ended up we weren't able to do that because we were already taking off time for the wedding. But also I think
Right.
it was kind of your special, and I think it's good that
That's
maybe
what
we
Mom
didn't
said.
go because it was
Yeah.
your special thing to meet your birth mom, and I feel like it was good that I wasn't there. And even though, although I would have loved to go back and be part of it, it's like I think it worked out the way it did. But
because you got married, right?
August 24th, 2013.
Yeah, so right when we got back, you got married. So it was like a lot
Oh
going on.
my god.
There was no way I was gonna be able to go take that and
Yeah.
but
That's fair.
But I would say that yeah, so that was my thought is I was just at that particular time, not even at that particular time, but I guess just always I thought, oh, mom and dad are your parents now, whatever.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that you have someone that birthed you and you want to find out more. 100%, that makes sense. So
Okay.
Were there any other like complex feelings that you had to work out when you were kind of figuring this out, or was it kind of
it all kind of made sense. I mean, you think like, oh, that makes sense. And plus, I wouldn't be mad at her because if she deserves to know her history and what she, you know, why would, if you have the opportunity to meet that person, like, yeah, you definitely want to meet him, you know, so so yeah, that was definitely crazy. And then obviously hearing the story about her telling it on the podcast, I really like too, because obviously I don't know if you ever told me.
I don't think so.
Mom and dad.
I don't know why
told
you would
me,
really necessarily sit down and be like, so
like,
here's what
Dylan,
happened.
Yeah.
Here's what happened when I met my birth mom.
Yeah.
And again, you were living in North Carolina,
Right,
so
it's not like
the wedding was right after, so that kind of took over.
Yeah,
and then
all just kind of
I didn't see you that much. Yeah.
And but mom said, like, obviously they said this on there when they were on it too. If you guys haven't listened to the past episodes, I strongly suggest going back to episode. I should have you guys have the episodes already ahead of time.
We should have those memorized.
Shoot.
Number this.
I think
title this.
that might have been episode 1 when we talked about.
No, it was
like 2
Know
or
Your
3.
Roots
I think it
is
was
2.
3.
And then
Well,
whatever
no,
mom
2,
and dad's
right.
were. Anyways, look
Theirs
them up.
is called The Meeting with the Orange
Meeting
Chairs.
with the-
That
yeah.
I know.
So go back, listen to those episodes if you haven't.
Yes.
So, but back to the story. So mom and dad said, same type of thing they said on that podcast is like, obviously it's super happy, but at the same time, not necessarily sad, but you're also, it's like, a
And I
double
wonder,
whammy.
There's a heaviness to it.
Yeah.
right, and I wonder if they also had the same thing, like, we are, maybe,
We're your parents now.
yeah, and so are you going to do the search more than, or the same
Than I
as
would
you
think,
did?
yeah.
Or did they think about it more than you
Right.
did?
But I didn't ever ask, like, growing up, or if I did, not much. Oh, I think I've asked once, like, would she ever meet a birth mom? And mom said, like, maybe, or if she wants to,
Who
or something
knows?
like that.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ever against you meeting your
No,
mom.
I don't think so
Because I know we
either.
have the thing with all the information about your mom and all that. I don't know. I feel like I saw it sometime recently again too. For some reason, mom showed me.
Maybe.
But anyways, like nice little listing. They probably talked about that on there. It talks about your mom's age and blah blah blah. But anyways, yeah. So I was for it.
Yeah, what was the question? We were
was
talking
like-
about something else though.
No, it was about what was
Like
my
if there's
thoughts
any more
on.
complexity in that.
Yeah,
You're right.
Okay. As far as that visit and her bio family, how do you feel about the fact that she has a biological brother?
Yeah, I thought that was super crazy. Like, whoa, she has a biological brother. But then at the same time, I feel like, well, that's cool. In a weird way, he's like my brother too. So
Yeah, he just
but-
commented on one of
yeah,
your
my-
pictures.
So I added
cool.
both of those two on Facebook, your mom and your brother, and I just thought, well, if
That's so cool.
if they're part of your family, then
Yeah.
even if I never meet them or whatever it is, then I feel like they're still connected to me in some way. It's and how old is he's just a year younger than you? Is that right?
I think 2. Maybe 2 years younger.
Yeah, and I know one time I asked you recently, like, how often you talk to him, stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. I think that'd be interesting if you could get something figured out with like translation, how much English he speaks, to have him on, because that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But, and you
that
guys
would.
don't talk much, probably.
Not very often,
Yeah.
no. Especially with, I think the language barrier makes it pretty
Well,
hard.
they have some of those.
Yeah.
They take forever, those apps. But
I know.
Yeah, they do.
an option. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I would say I thought it was crazy. I was like, whoa, she has another. Like, I didn't expect it for sure. And being so close in age, obviously, to what you were, it's like, and I'm sure that made confusion for you. Like, wait a second, well,
Yeah.
2 years later, and now you got
Right.
another kid.
Mhm.
So, but I was definitely surprised at it.
Mhm.
For
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah. But also, like, I'm not gonna be like, oh, that guy's. I mean, obviously, I grew up
I was
with her,
brother
so
first.
I know her better probably. Right? But
Just putting it on the table.
yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm sure that he would have been a good brother too.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Would you ever adopt?
I think that I'm open to it. I would say that I'm not like I for sure want to adopt somebody, or I
Yeah.
for sure don't want to. But I would say that it'd be something that how could you not at least be open to entertaining the idea with the situation? Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. As an adult listening to the podcast, how do you feel? Like, do you feel any different now that you've listened to that, like about different issues regarding it?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. I know I touched on some of them
Mhm,
earlier. I
mhm.
just never knew there's so much like I feel abandoned. I feel
Mhm.
this. Maybe that's why sometimes, like we mentioned, you're more the rebel. Maybe that's why
Yeah.
sometimes you're acting out when
That
I
Or I
underlying-
needed
didn't.
you to give me the water.
Yeah,
Cause
it's
like, wait, I'm
because-
still
I need
here.
caretaking
Yeah,
over here, please.
It's because
Makes sense.
you had underlying things that I'm just thinking, she doesn't want to do this, or she's
Yeah,
she's whatever,
yeah.
acting moody or whatever it may be.
Called out.
But I'd say that that's the biggest thing is I never would have known a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't ask you. I
Yeah.
don't say, Erika, how are you feeling today?
Mhm.
I just assume like you're gonna say good, and that's it. We're not gonna say
Right.
like, well, how do you feel about it? I don't
Yeah.
ask those questions, and I never would have thought to ask it. If you guys didn't have the podcast, I would say that a lot of stuff about not only you
Mhm.
but also adoption in general and how adoptees feel. I want to know how, what you guys feel like, what you're
Mhm.
going through.
Sure.
And why maybe certain things were the way they were, or you felt the way that you did.
Mhm.
So I feel like it was tons, especially like I said, the one where you went back to meet your birth mom,
Yeah.
and even hearing mom and dad's, and then obviously some of the guests you guys have had, like they all have their things that you guys all seem to have a lot in common with how you
Mhm.
guys are dealing with things. So obviously it's good for you guys to know you have other people that feel the same exact way and to be able to help work through those issues together.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's pretty cool for sure, because I definitely like I said, I just thought, you're part of our family now. That's it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Would you say that there's any, like, either one issue, one similarity that we all share, or anything like that that surprises you the most?
That's a good question. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that a lot of people say abandonment issues. It makes sense. But let me think.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
threw this one at you.
So none
Didn't
of the
know this
list.
prior
Sorry.
question.
I
No,
always get excited. I'm just like,
let
"Ooh."
me think.
Take a minute.
I mean,
Some water.
I would say that, I don't know, it surprised me, but obviously it seems like everybody pretty much wants to be their birth mom, which, like I said, until you met your birth mom, I didn't necessarily know that that's something that for the most part, every person was trying to do, wants to do, for the most part, not always.
Yeah.
Though. But, and then also I think it's interesting too that, and it makes sense because the mother actually birthed you, but you didn't really want to meet your birth dad, right?
Yeah. I would have, but I just felt like,
Yeah.
I felt like already he wouldn't be there. So
Right.
it just kind of, I took that out of my head immediately.
But you don't hear anybody say like, "Oh, I can't wait to meet my birth dad," but I don't want to meet my birth mom. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like the birth mom's definitely the person that you want to meet. The birth dad,
Yeah.
if theirs makes sense, maybe they'll do it.
Yeah.
But,
If they're even at all present.
exactly.
I feel like
Which
that
a
has
lot
lot
of
to do
times
with
it is the case.
Exactly.
Why? Yep. And I know there's a lot of shows that you guys have probably seen, what, Long Lost Family or something. I know that we watch that sometimes.
Oh,
If
I
you
think
guys
I've seen
haven't, you
part of
should
that.
watch it. It's basically
Long Lost Family.
we
I've
watch
never
a
seen
lot.
that.
A lot. You can watch episodes on YouTube.
Oh.
Long Lost Family. I probably took wrong camera there.
It's cool.
But we'll give them a shout out. It's an interesting show where people are trying to find their birth parents, and a lot of times
Oh.
they're old, like 40, 50 years
Is
old.
that the one with like the two hosts?
There's some
that are-
hosts,
Okay,
yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I think.
I've
A
never
while
even
ago.
heard of that.
Look it up online if
Okay.
you want. But yeah, I think that show too again shows that everybody, and usually the people, it's interesting too because the people who 99% of the time, I'd say the people who give the people up for adoption, those parents who gave the person up, are happy that they're meeting their birth child that they gave away.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time.
Have they shown any situations where
They
they're
have shown some where they do not want to see them.
Oh, that would
Yep.
be fascinating
Yep.
to see.
Yep. So definitely, and that's sad too. But it's like
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, well, I don't know how you feel. That'd be hard to.
I think I've said this in the past
Yeah.
one. At least you have an answer.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they're there, but they don't want to meet you.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
is at least a closure,
Yeah.
Some
rather
type.
than the search never ending.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes it works out where they end up like they're hanging out. They're 5 minutes away. A lot of times that happens. On the obviously for
That'd
you
be
guys
weird.
is different. But on the show there, a lot of them they're like, they were 10 minutes away that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Gives me the creeps.
Yeah.
I like that.
which is pretty crazy for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, just having adopted a sibling, you definitely you hear the shows like that or see something like that, and it's always like crazy. I watched something on TV
Mhm.
recently too that was a Dateline episode or 48 Hours.
Ooh,
The
love
crime
Dateline
show.
and 48
48
hours.
Hours. This is interesting too. It's about adoption, so I feel like we'll throw it into that.
Yep, I want to watch something.
So
like this.
listen to this. Listen to this. Crazy. Okay, so this lady was adopted from Russia, right?
Okay.
Her parents brought her back, and she didn't have any medical issues, anything going on. But once she got to America, all of a sudden she's having all kinds of medical issues, a lot of psychological issues, a lot of stuff that they're like, she has psychopath type tendencies, basically based on the studies. She had a brother. I don't want to, well, you'll still watch it even if I tell you what happened.
Yeah.
She had a brother, and the parents said that she tried to throw the brother out of the window, who was 3 years younger, who was a biological kid. So she was older, biological kid younger, trying to throw him out the window. So they're like, oh my gosh, we made a mistake, basically, is what they thought. So they took her back to Russia, and they have video, a lot of this, because they were she was on Dateline, or 48 Hours like 20, 30 years ago. So the first part of the episode, they're showing like way back old TV, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I swear I didn't try to kill my brother. He was just too happy. Like a really young kid. And they're like, she thinks that she might
Can
be
you
able...
reenact like every episode, please? Like ever?
So she is like thinking she's getting tested, but she's going to be able to go back to the family in America. And they keep asking her, are you guys going to bring her back after this testing? They said, well, we're waiting to see. We're just here for testing. That's what they kept saying. They made the decision not to bring her back. Then they did an update to nowadays.
Oh, God.
She didn't kill anybody. She has 4 kids, and she's completely normal. What? And so the parents gave their child back, thinking that their child was potentially a killer. Oh my God. And there was nothing really wrong with the child. Actually, she said, I promise it was a mistake. I never meant to do that.
Oh my God.
I wonder if they were just having like regrets, or like she actually tried to throw the brother out though, right?
She just picked him up and dropped. She dropped him apparently. Yeah. He was too heavy or something. So she says she didn't, but she could again. Then you look back, we're like, well, she's a psychopath, so maybe she's just really good at lying about it. So, but I think the fact that she had 4, so she had, and then she's like, I see why they gave me back. I get it. Maybe I would have done the same from my point of view. She was very forgiving of them, and they also were happy to hear. They interviewed the parents. They were happy to hear that she was okay. But I think myself that what a crazy story. First off, and it's hard for the adoptee and the adopted parents, because like, well, what if your adopted person was gonna kill? What would you do?
Yeah,
I don't know. That's crazy. So anyways, another crazy thing to do with adoption, and just like,
and that's a whole other aspect we haven't, thankfully, we didn't
have
to go through
that experience with the person.
Hey, you should get her on the show.
Oh God.
That's a good idea. We'll reach out to her. She's in Russia. You just interview her via Zoom.
Did she ever end up getting adopted again? Or like she's in Russia?
She did
like,
get adopted
there?
By somebody, I guess, right? Now she has a family in Russia,
That's wild.
It was crazy. I just saw it this week. So
I'm going to watch that when I get home.
Yeah, it was the 48 Hours episode that would have been posted last Saturday.
So this is really recent. Okay.
So yeah, it was crazy. But another situation where I'm sure she has abandonment issues, right? But
that 2 times she was fine.
But also just like, I'm sure that added extra. I don't know, she would be a good person to get on the podcast if somebody guys could get her on, really, if you think about it. But yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I started talking about that, but man.
I enjoyed it. From start to finish,
episode.
it was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
They're going to watch it too. What other questions do we have?
I think the last one I have, and Risa, you can kind of go off this a little bit, but as an adoptee, we tend to think about adoption a lot. Well, and especially now with our podcast.
We were talking about this the other day.
And just like the community we're in, adoption is like
constant.
Yeah, it pops up all the time now. So it's kind of like, ooh.
Yeah.
Before maybe not so much, but do you ever think about me not being blood related to you? Or is it you just never really thought about it? You kind of touched a little bit on this.
No, I mean, you know that it I know you're not blood related, but I mean, I don't think of it as like a negative or a positive. I mean, I guess it can be a positive thing, because now I know a lot about Colombia that I didn't know, right? But I would say that overall, I'd say that I don't think of it any differently, but I know that you aren't blood related. I just always know it. So just kind of like, it is, that's what it is, you're not blood related. But I would say that ultimately the people that you're around and that you're raised by are what mold the circumstances. Like when we're all hanging out as a family together, we all
share tendencies.
do the same stuff. Yeah, we all
nature
joke.
Versus nurture.
Yeah, we all joke together about the same things. We all do the same things because you were 2 or 3 months old when you became part of the family. If you were
Right.
5, then it might be a lot different, right? It depends on when. I think that it's probably, in my guess is that typically it's easier to adapt to your adoptive family if it's younger in the process, right? If
For
you're 12
sure,
or
for
15,
sure.
Absolutely.
it's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
So I think just with our circumstances that I always, but I always know that you're adopted too. So adoption's always something that if I hear adopted, it's not like I just, someone who isn't, maybe it doesn't have someone adopted in their family, they're probably not going to say like, that's not going to like when they hear adopted, they could just zone out, not hear anything, but I hear adopted, I think Erika. Because, you know what I mean? You hear someone adopted, Erika. That's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's like, because we have, or at least for me, I guess we didn't talk about this more earlier. We were just saying, like, we talk about it constantly. It's never out of our heads. However, the things that I sometimes just like pop into my head, I'm just like, when people like talking to their mom around me or something, and they're just like, oh yeah, they were like at this place, which is where I was born. I'm like,
right.
Nobody was there. That's crazy. Like, that's
Right.
what I think about.
Right.
But, and I mean, it's the same when like people mention adoption. I'm like,
Yeah, you hear it,
excuse
you're
me.
like,
Like, yeah,
adoption, oh.
that's
Yeah.
interesting though.
Or
that
if someone
that's kind
says they're
of what
adopting
it is
somebody,
for
oh
you.
yeah, my sister's adopted. I'm always, if someone says they're adopting somebody or they know somebody adopting somebody or they have adopted this and that or they're adopted, I say, cool, my sister's adopted from Colombia. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
far as like it definitely
Yeah,
comes
you
up,
definitely-
but it's not.
It comes up because if I hear it, I think of it, but I'd say that I don't feel the same feelings that you might feel about certain things because I'm not adopted. So
Right.
where I feel it too, it sounds like, oh yeah, Erika, then Erika might have feelings of like, this makes me feel like abandonment. This reminds me of this and that. This, whatever it may be.
Okay.
Deeper for you guys because
Yeah.
you guys are actually adopted. I'm just a person who's related to someone. Who's adopted.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have anything else, but I think that was really good insight. I didn't know. I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me throughout the whole thing is I didn't know you got all those like kind of deep. Why are you this? Or why is she that? Are you this?
Yeah.
Like, are you adopted?
Oh, she doesn't look like, or if,
Yeah.
or maybe some people say my sister doesn't look. I mean, I'd say that most of the time people
Yeah.
don't really know, like, oh yeah, that could be your
Enough,
brother.
Yeah.
like, where it's not
Yeah.
crazy.
But I would
Right.
say
Yeah.
that, like, sometimes if they say, oh, she doesn't, then I'd be, oh, she's adopted. Oh, so she's not your real sister. Do you have any real brothers and sisters? I mean, you probably, I don't know a specific time that happened, but I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't
Kids are-
remember really specific times either, but I know
Right.
that it happened a lot.
Exactly.
Yep. Or like, oh yeah, just you hear the, oh, is that your real sister? Oh. But the main thing is not necessarily people asking about real sister, but you hear someone making a thing about adoption being being adopted being bad, and that's something that if people don't know someone adopted,
They can
don't
easily
get
make
it.
that joke.
They don't
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But then once they do, it makes sense. Where usually, depending on
For sure.
Do you? Well, first, okay. No, I have 2 questions. Erika,
Mm.
how do you feel at the end of this? Like after getting all these questions answered, like you guys probably haven't had a conversation like this before.
No, I think now that I do the podcast, I think it's just kind of natural and all of the like different aspects of adoptions coming out. So I think it's really cool because again, we've never talked
you
about.
probably wouldn't have ever had this conversation if you didn't have a podcast.
Yeah,
I would have never.
I
said-
agree.
I would have never been like, so Erika.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's how I felt when, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it ever would have come
Right.
up. We just know, like, in the back of my mind, I feel like you kind of knew what I was going to answer on most things. I feel like in my mind, I think, like, pretty much how I feel, but maybe you don't, so I think it's cool.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know definitely about the search or with the brother or different things like that,
Mhm.
different dynamics or the questions you got. I think that really is surprising to me. So I feel good about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think the podcast definitely made us closer too because again he's such a huge supporter.
Yeah.
Like he's listening to every episode,
Mhm.
sharing, wearing our
Yep.
merch.
Yes.
You know.
This is a great lightweight hoodie, and it works well in the wintertime, but also in the summer if you're wanting something that's maybe a long sleeve, but you're not necessarily want to wear short sleeve. It's a great option, go-to option.
Great free advertising. I
Yes.
love that.
So I'm just always supportive. So I think that's been really nice throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just having that support and having it through my family. I mean, I think I've talked about this time and time again, but I'm just really thankful for that because it makes this easier than it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
What
Yep.
was my other question? Shoot. Oh, do you have any either interesting, sentimental, or embarrassing anecdotes that you can share about Erika growing up?
I
Interesting.
mean, he already said I was bald headed right when he got the picture.
Hey,
Moody.
baby.
Okay.
No, I
she
don't
does
care.
the funny
Is there
chicken,
anything else
the
interesting?
chicken thing.
Oh,
It's
Okay.
super
I'm
embarrassing.
excited.
Yeah.
You know,
So
it's
she's
embarrassing,
more.
let's be honest.
She's more like, oh, do whatever, and I was more, at least at that point in time. I used to be really shy actually. So, but definitely not as outgoing as Erika and my dad. And Erika would try to embarrass me.
Oh, God.
And she would like walk across the restaurant doing this like
Chicken dance, yeah.
dance. So that was definitely. Well,
More
now,
embarrassing for you, I
now
guess,
it's
at the
embarrassing.
time.
Now it's embarrassing for you, man. 'Cause now
Yeah.
you probably have to do it on the podcast sometime.
Never.
But I would say that it was embarrassing for me too.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
embarrassing things here, though.
But let's see what else. Oh, I'm sure there's a lot.
I'm not that embarrassing.
Yeah, we already talked
Shoot
about
now.
the when you not embarrassing, but you used to say like you're Jessica. That was like your alter ego when you come to the
Mhm.
You're
door.
an alter ego?
No,
What?
but you pretend to be Jessica.
Remember?
on the-
Wait,
yeah.
Jessica. What? Yeah, what?
Listen back to the podcast.
Yes, I'm like,
God,
yeah.
that was your chosen name for some
But
reason?
she liked
gosh.
that name. She's like, hi, I'm Jessica. And then
Yeah.
we'd go along with it. And pretend like she was Jessica and stuff like that. That was,
That was creepy.
oh.
I love it, though. It's
But-
so funny.
And other than that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, for the most part, she's always really been like naturally. She always says on one of our podcasts, like, we're a sports family, this and that. And like, when I was younger, I sucked at sports, but I liked sports. So I worked really hard to be good at them. Erika was naturally really good at sports. Didn't have to work as hard.
Interesting.
So I was definitely like, I'd go to her games and be like mom would be like, oh, she's doing good. And I'd be like, no, I was like, Erika has to be the best. Like, I definitely wanted to.
Very
Erika-
protective.
I wanted her to do well, and
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
knew how good she was, and she didn't really have to try to be good.
Yeah.
Naturally was
Aw.
good. So I would be
Little
mad
star.
if she was lazy or something. I'd be
Yeah.
mad because I'm like, I have to work so hard for these things. You could do it, and you
Oh,
aren't doing
okay.
it.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Interesting.
So I'd say that's one way that I was always like super proud. Is like watching
Mhm.
her play sports, stuff like that. I always was so proud to have her. Like basketball, I'd say was my favorite sport to watch. I know like one of the
Yeah.
high school games when I was in college I went to, and I think you made a bunch of threes, and I was like, oh, I'm so proud.
Yep.
So
That's awesome.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. So I was
love
like,
that.
oh, that's awesome, because I know we shot baskets in the front yard together. I'd
Mhm.
try to help you, and we'd shoot together. So that was always a
Yeah.
fun part. Is like basically like sports and stuff like that. Always was like
Yeah.
a fun thing together.
And you're
for
always so
sure.
supportive and also protective. I remember one time we were on vacation and someone hollered out the window, like, oh, you're cute or something. And Dylan, you just were so mad. You said, she's only 16. And you were like chasing the car down.
It was.
Yes. Oh,
That's
we'll have to
funny.
ask mom and dad
But
about that
you know
tonight.
what? That's
So cute.
That's true. They should be more respectful. So.
Still
But
true, it
but
holds
yeah,
up.
I would say that you definitely wanted to make sure that you weren't around any like losers or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any last like things that you've thought of over listening to the podcast that you have questions for us about our experiences at all?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's hard to know because I feel like you guys do such a good job of always bringing up your guys' feelings on how certain things
Thank you.
are. I know, like on the.
You need to bring him every time.
I know.
Talking us up.
Great.
But no, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's things that I can like. For instance, I'd ask Erika about her brother, stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
I could ask her questions about her birth mom, how often you talk to your birth mom, and your friends are on social media,
Mhm.
things like that. I don't know if that's a million answer on the podcast now, but
Oh,
Like-
kind of same with my brother. It's just
Yeah, not
every
that
once in a
much.
while, no.
Like,
And
they
she,
might
More
like-
as like an
they
acknowledgement.
might like your
kind of?
picture. You like their picture.
Right.
Right.
You know that they're supportive
Interaction
of
rather
you.
than conversation kind of
Right.
thing.
You know they're
Exactly.
supportive, but at
Okay.
the same time, it's not. And do you ever, like, is that something you'd ever like? Would you want to meet her again?
I think so, but I also came kind of to the conclusion that I don't think I would.
Really?
Yeah.
We've not talked about this. This
I
is
just don't know,
fascinating.
like, when that would happen.
Next
I
time you
thought
guys
it-
go
I was
back,
gonna say. I mean,
aren't you
if-
guys going back soon or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Or
the
is it
plan.
time? Yeah.
That's the plan.
And, like, yeah, I guess, like, it just, I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think that'd be cool. Or, like, at my wedding, I think that'd be cool if she could come, but, like, that's impossible.
And did you meet your brother that day?
Yeah. Yep. I
Interesting.
met him there. And I met his dad.
Interesting. Does he live?
Yeah.
No.
That's right.
No, they're good friends, but they don't live together.
Interesting. I definitely like I said, I think it makes sense I didn't go, but I definitely like in my mind have like a vision of what it was like. So I'm
Mhm.
curious how it actually was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can hear it telling the story, but I'm like,
Yeah.
because then they live like outside of Bogota. I was like in
Mhm.
like the mountains or something.
Yeah,
So-
in a bad
The new
area.
location, I think, is out there.
Mhm. Yeah. So I don't know. I think maybe it'd be cool to do a whole other family trip with everyone.
Yeah.
And then a trip with you. Like, I think it'd be cool to go back multiple times. I just don't know.
You, if correct me if I'm wrong, you don't necessarily want to meet your birth mom.
I don't really plan to.
You're afraid of maybe what it might bring as far as you're not sure.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that there's like this looming fear around it. It's very like there's a episode where we talk about the theories of attachment.
Right.
And I just based on those theories kind of think that we have that different thing. Like I just feel like I could have been brought by a stork and it would have made sense.
Yeah.
Like I don't associate my existence with another body.
Person.
So like I don't know, I don't think about that and like have like
you're not
a physical reaction to stress
like,
or something or like
so bad or anything like
that. It's just kind of like I want to know more about my culture and background, go to the place.
Yeah.
Like that could bring that out.
Yep.
You know, going back there could bring that out.
It'd be interesting to see how that ends up happening for sure. What ends up happening when you do go back there.
Yeah, I think it's more so me taking a grasp on that by doing this and just by like getting to the root of these kinds of
because even
topics.
so you'd still want to talk about the feelings you guys have regardless if you meet your birth mom or you don't because she met her birth mom but she's still talking about the feelings and that so but I think it's interesting again how not everybody's the same with anything. For you it's super important.
Yeah.
For you and maybe it's not, maybe it will be later, you don't know.
Exactly.
So
Ooh, that's weird.
could be on Long Lost Family 20 years from now. Having one of those.
Yeah, we'll be in Colombia and I'll be like, Erika, we have to do this now. You'll be like, I was not prepared. You would freak out more than me.
I think I would.
You definitely would.
But yeah, I think it's there's a lot that you guys have that's before the podcast was probably just up in your minds thinking about it. So I'm sure you guys enjoy having the outlet and have other people that you're able to meet through the different groups and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think you guys are doing a good job. And like I said, I probably want to talk to you guys about adoption for an hour had we not had a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I agree.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome just because we haven't really had this perspective and yet we are, you know, basically in our third season at this point and we haven't talked about that before and, you know, we've kind of tried to cover the bases when it comes to our family. So this is a really interesting perspective, I think, to kind of get us started for 2022.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, I guess if there's... Do you have anything else?
No, I was just going to say, well, thank you for being on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Coming from North Carolina just for this.
Just for this, we flew in first class.
Specifically for the podcast that came in. So, happy to be here. And, obviously, anyone listening, definitely go back, listen to prior episodes, and make sure to tune in to the next episode.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, you guys know where to check us out. If there are any things that you guys want us to cover, any people that you think we should talk to, merch, you know, that's important.
You guys have this one anymore, do you?
We can make it.
We can make basically anything.
It's comfy.
Yeah, if you need to feel wrapped up by the love of Colombian Influence, that's a great way to do it. All right, well, everybody, you know where to find us. Follow, like, subscribe, rate, review, all of the above. And we will see you next time. And, I messed that up. Tevin, can we cut that out? I hate myself.
You should leave all that in.
I should not.
And no. You're doing so good. All right.
I know.
It's just literally that. The last part.
Yeah, I think just cut out the last part.
No, it's
like, subscribe, and start over that part, and then we can...
Thank you, director. What is happening? Follow, like, subscribe, rate, review, all of the above. Until next time.
Later.
Bye.